be with us this evening. My name is David Lovelady. I've had the privilege to work with JCMG for many years, as well as JCMG Podiatry. And this is an honor to introduce these next two guests. A couple things just to let you know as the presentation progresses. There are two restrooms just behind you if you need to use the restroom. Also, inside of your little packets, there is a questionnaire sheet. Whenever you have the time, make sure that we fill those out. If you have any questions or concerns, you can just fill that out. And also, everyone has been provided a pen. If you have any questions at the end of this presentation, we'll have time to answer all your questions, and just to make sure that everyone is all their cares and concerns have been answered for that. With that, if you don't mind, please silence your phones, and I would like to introduce Drs. William Duke and Dr. Jody McAleer.
Is this on? Can everybody hear me okay? So I'm going to use the microphone this year. So this is first off, thank you everybody for coming out. We're very humbled to see this just unbelievable turnout. It's wonderful that so many of you in the Jefferson City community came out to see us tonight. We put a lot of effort into putting this presentation together for you, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So this is our second time doing it this year. We were just up in Columbia, and we had a really nice turnout there as well. And last year we did this turnout, and I got to tell you, between this class and the one in Columbia, we more than doubled the attendance from last year. So the information, the word is getting out there about Lapiplasty, the Lapiplasty difference, our new approach to performing this procedure, the benefits of the procedure, how it's improving our patients' quality of life, and how we're kind of attacking bunions aggressively and fixing them so that we can fix it once, we can fix it right the first time, and you don't have to worry about the potential for reoccurrence and continued problems with these. Dr. Duke and myself, just to kind of give you some background on us. I see some familiar faces in the audience, so I know some of Dr. Duke's patients, some of my patients are here, so thank you again for coming and participating. We've all trained at major academic institutions. I myself trained at Mount Sinai in New York City, and Dr. Duke trained at Mount Sinai in Chicago. There's no relation between those two hospitals. It just happenstance that we both live here, do podiatry. It's kind of uncanny. So it wasn't planned like that. But so both of us have a firm understanding and background on bunion surgery, and we've been taught all the traditional methods of treatment, the 2D typical bunion correction that we've all kind of come to know, where patients would have what we thought was a very good, reasonable outcome. But unfortunately, with time, due to instability and other factors, these bunion deformities come back. And there's a really high dissatisfaction with bunion surgery in general, and unfortunately, bunion surgery gets a really bad rap. So we're here to kind of change your mind on how you look at this, how we approach it, and hopefully you're going to see that we're doing something unique. We're the first center in the state of Missouri to provide this procedure. We brought it here. No one else had been performing this procedure in the entire state prior to us. So about 1 year ago, we performed the first Lapiplasty bunion procedure. And since then, we've done over 100. We've had just fantastic results, and the patient population seems to be very, very happy with it. So I'm going to not bore you with too many details. Hopefully, you guys will enjoy this, and we'll kind of roll through here. Dr. Duke and I are going to tag team a little bit back and forth on the presentation. So, painful bunions, right? That's why we're here, right? Everyone's kind of here to chat about what a bunion is and how it affects your life. And bunions vary in severity, mild, moderate, severe. We have different grading systems, and we have different ways of looking at these things. But really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I think and what your x-ray says. It really kind of comes to how this affects your life. So if you're having a hard time getting out there and enjoying time with your children, your family, your loved ones, if you don't want to take that trip to Disneyland or Disney World, or you don't want to go down to Branson and walk around Silver Dollar City because your foot hurts, you can't wear the pair of shoes that you want to wear to your cousin's wedding, or if you're having a hard time just kind of getting out there and you're embarrassed if you have to go to the pool and you don't want anyone to see this bump on the side of your foot. If you're wearing your flip-flops, that's what we're here for. We're here to kind of fix that problem for you. So bunions really are more than just a simple bump. People look at this and they say, hey, can you shave that thing off? Is there something I can wear? Is there something that I can do outside of surgery? Unfortunately, bunions are a fairly complicated structural problem, and Dr. Duke's going to get into anatomy here in a little bit, kind of explain things to you. But this is a problem that is not simple. It's a triplane deformity, and we're going to show you what that means here in a little bit as well. And these 3 planes of deformity is how we fix this. So we're going to derotate that bunion deformity, put things back into alignment. And we're not going to cut the side of that bone off. We're not going to change your anatomy. We're going to put you back the way that we were meant to be. And that's the difference. Okay, this is why we don't have the problems with reoccurrence. And we're also going to show you why you can walk the day of surgery, which everybody loves. All right, that's like a big fan favorite right there. So the reason these things hurt so much is because the big toe joint is a very, very complex joint. It consists of 2 major bones, and then these 2 little tiny bones that we'll show you that are called sesamoids. They're like lima bean shaped bones on the bottom of the big toe joint. But with every step you take, your entire body weight is pushing through this joint, and it's lifting you off, whether you're standing, walking, running, squatting, bending. The joint is being used and manipulated with very, very intense forces. So this is why when these joints are malaligned and there's a bump on the side of the foot, they're very painful. And this is why shoe wear becomes difficult and normal activities become difficult for you. We get pain, we get swelling, we get pressure. I don't know how many patients come in and tell me, why is the side of my toe numb? I have this bump, and also, by the way, I have another problem, my toe is numb. The reason the toe becomes numb, the big toe, there's a large nerve that runs right over the side of where that bump is. And when you wear your shoes, the shoe encroaches on the nerve, which rubs up against the bump. And just kind of like if you lay on your hand for too long, or you're banging your elbow up against a door frame walking through it, you get those pins and needles, that area will go to sleep. That's a compression, an injury to the nerve. And so by correcting the bunion, you can correct the nerve problem, and that sensation should come back over time. The other issues come in is the fact that you get crowding. You get crowding of the adjacent toes. So bunions don't just cause a bump and pain, but they cause other deformities of the forefoot. So we get contracted hammer toes. Okay? That's arthritis, essentially, that's setting into those digits. Those digits don't function properly anymore. They're gripping. They're trying to stabilize your foot while you're standing and walking. That's a problem for you. So people say, well, why did I get this? How did I win this lottery? Well, basically, it's a genetic predisposition. There's a big study that came out of Scandinavia several years ago, and it kind of talked about familial hereditary patterns for bunion deformities. And basically, the long story short, without giving you all the details, is they're hereditary. So if you have like a 1st or 2nd degree relative, a mom, an aunt, somewhere up your family tree, if you shake that family tree, you can blame the person that falls out of the tree that's above you, okay? The reason you get these things is because of biomechanical imbalances. So we have lax joints, joints that aren't functioning properly, that are not holding us the way that they're supposed to be. So in essence, what ends up happening is the joint will derotate, come out of position, and other factors such as tendon pulls and so on and so forth will cause that toe to deviate to a greater extent. And that's why you get this kind of curved appearance to the side of the foot here. Also, footwear plays a role, occupation plays a role. But these are not the main causative factors that gave you the bunion. But these are the things that will accelerate the process and make it so that the bunion comes on faster. If you're wearing practical shoes, your bunions may not hurt you as much. If you wear wide toe, rounded off, Oxford type dress shoes, or if you're wearing like a work shoe, these things may not bother you as much. If you live somewhere like in Southern California, I tell patients on a regular basis, hey, listen, you have a bunion, you want the cure? Move to San Diego. That's the cure. Wear sandals year round, it'll be fine. But that's a joke. But certain types of footwear are going to make this worse. They're going to constrain that bump, they're going to push on it, they're going to cause for irritation of the soft tissue, irritation of the bone, and it's going to lead to advanced arthritis and other problems. Ballerinas. We see dancers all the time in the office. Any ballerinas here? Maybe not. No. But dancers, Dr. Duke, you're dancing again? Congratulations. They have terrible feet for a lot of reasons, especially this endpoint. So I tell all my young dancers, I have daughters. We talk about footwear and options and orthotics and trying to avoid the potential for bunions. So this is a really big deal. These. Everybody loves these, right? Guys love them, gals love them. Lots of different reasons why. But high heels are a big causative factor in advancement of the bunion deformity. The crowding of the toes, the mobility of the foot, just the instability of the position that you're placing yourself. This is why the primary patient we see with bunion deformities is female, because of shoe selection. These will aggravate your problems for sure. So now, Dr. Duke's going to talk a little bit about how we figure out if you have a bunion and how we figure out if we need to do something for your bunion.
Okay, can you hear me back there okay? I'm not very big on microphone, and just a little disclaimer, those do not belong to me. They're not mine. Dr. Franklin told the last group that those were mine, but they're not. Okay. You've all been to a doctor, but maybe you haven't all been to a foot doctor. Maybe you haven't been to someone who just looks at your foot and ankle. So let's talk about what's going to happen from the time you walk into the door and you're greeted by one of the lovely office staff till the time you see us and tell us all about that problem that is really affecting your quality of life. When you come in, the girls in the office are going to ask you a series of questions. How long have you had this? How does it bother you? Why does it bother you? Have you tried anything for it? All kinds of different questions, right? Some of those are meant to trigger other questions. Some of those are meant to let us know what activities you want to do, but maybe you can't do, right? After they ask some questions, we're going to get some x-rays of your feet. We're going to get 4 to be exact of each foot. We're going to look at that bone from every different angle that we can look at it. Because when we show you here in a few minutes that it really is a 3-dimensional problem, we need multiple angles to kind of check it out. And we're going to go through the anatomy portion of it so that before you leave here today, you're going to know what it's supposed to look like, what it looked like years ago when we fixed it from a 2-dimensional approach, and what it should look like now. Because the more information you have, the better you can be with your healthcare decisions, right? Okay. Additionally, we're going to look at your skin. We're going to see where those calluses are on your feet, because as the biomechanics change, as your foot starts to rotate, as that bone starts to move, your body will develop callus formation. It's no different than if you're pushing a broom all day, right? Your hands get calluses on them because you're doing work. It's the same thing, but bunion deformities and formations cause certain characteristic patterns of calluses to develop. So we can automatically know about all those other things that may be happening, all those other deformities, just by looking at the bottom or the side of your foot. Pretty interesting, right? We're going to assess how good your blood flow is so we can assess how well you heal. We'll check out if you're developing any of that bad numbness that Dr. Mackler told you about. And then finally, we're going to move your big toe joint around in a bunch of different ways. We're going to check to see how much motion there is at a certain joint, and we'll go into that a little bit more. And then we're going to show you your x-rays. We're going to give you the information. We're going to say, here is why this is a problem, and here's what you do to fix it. So are they progressive? Yes, they can get worse. This is one of the most common questions. Is this going to get worse over the next 5 years? Absolutely. How much worse is it going to get? I have no idea. For some people, it may get so bad that your toes start to cross over in the next 6 months. For other people, what you have may not get worse for several years, and then it will progress very, very quickly. So they're not going to go away on their own. As much as we may want them to go away, as much as we may wear shoes that are 2 or 3 sizes too big for us, when you take your shoe off, it's still going to be there. It's not going to go away. So how do we manage symptoms early on? Hopefully none of you have bought this. I really hope not. I'm not sure how you would sleep in that, much less wear shoes or walk. But if you go on Google and type in bunion problems, treatments for bunions, in like 0.08 seconds, you'll get like 400,000 or 500,000 hits of some website trying to sell you this. 50 bucks, doesn't work, you get frustrated, 30 minutes into the first time you're wearing it, you throw that thing away. So we can do whatever you want. We can kind of limp along, so to speak, and try all these pads, splints, inserts, and things like that. But none of them are going to address the root cause of the problem. What else is there? Well, there's spacers. We could put a spacer between your big toe and your second toe. We can separate those areas out so it looks like your toe is straight again, right? You're like, oh, look, my toe's straight, but I still have my bump. Why is my bump still there? Because it's a three-dimensional problem and we've only addressed it in one plane of the deformity. Can we give you some inserts or orthotics? You know, can you go to Walmart and stand on that machine and pay another $50 for custom orthotics? Yeah, you can, but they're not real custom and they're probably not going to do a lot for you, okay? So Dr. McNamara mentioned, a lot of people will say, well, can you just cut this thing off? Can you just shave this big bump of bone off? Yeah, you could, and doctors have even done it in the past. But guess what? It doesn't work. It doesn't work because that's not the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem is actually an unstable joint that's further back in your foot down here, causing that bone to shift and turn. And Dr. McNamara is going to show you exactly how it shifts and turns, okay? So really it's that unstable joint that we just talked about. What happens is the bones start to drift side to side, and you get this big V, or this big splay of these two metatarsal bones, and we'll go into the anatomy in just a minute. And then your big toe starts to drift the other way. Humor me for a second. How many of you have walked down the street and you see the guy or gal walking in front of you, and one shoulder's kind of tilted, right? We've seen that, but their head is straight, right? Their head is straight to kind of keep them walking in line so they don't fall. The same kind of thing with your big toe joint. As your metatarsal starts to drift way far sideways, where does your big toe go? It goes the other way to try and balance it back out. But in reality, it's just causing a further problem. It's not really addressing the cause of the problem. So, how do I know if I have one? Well, we've kind of talked about that from an anatomy standpoint, and the fact that they are more than just a bump. There's actually 206 bones in the human body, 28 in each foot. So over 27% of the bones in your body are located right that you walk on every day, 10,000 steps. That's what we're supposed to get in, right, to be healthy. We're supposed to walk as much as we can, and then you put this big bump on the side of there, and your toes shifting out of the way, and who wants to take 10,000 steps? Nobody. So how often do we get it, Dr. McNamara? I can't exercise because what? My feet hurt.
And we collapse. We have an unsteady foundation. So that leads to problems and pain at the ball of the foot, and it leads to other areas of discomfort. And it also causes for those toes to kind of claw and grip over time when we're standing and walking, because it's trying to stabilize this unbalanced, unstable foot against the ground. Anybody need any new tires recently? I know I did, okay? I had one out of alignment, so I go to the dealer, they go, hey, well, I'm a sucker for going to the dealer, but they go, hey, yeah, you need 4 new ones, okay? So the metatarsal bone rotates out of position, just like your tires. If they're not aligned well, they will rotate slightly, and you'll start riding out on the edge of the tire. It'll make that tire bald earlier than it's supposed to be, because the pressure and the forcible on that tire is incorrect. You're not riding along it the way that you should be. And that's what happens with the metatarsal bone here. The metatarsal bone is rotated. That's the third plane of deformity. And that joint starts to wear down, and you get arthritis and pain. This is not a stock photo. This is one of my pre-op patients. And I want you to look at this, and I want you to think about it, and I want you to remember it for later, because I'm going to show you the before and after x-rays for this patient, so you can appreciate what we did for him. Now, this is a patient that had a bunion deformity. I did not fix their bunion originally. They had surgery about 10 to 12 years prior. So they had a traditional, 2-dimensional, long arm, Austin bunionectomy. You can Google that, and you can see what that looks like. But I'll show you later on the x-rays, where they had an incision here, bone was cut, shifted over, and then ultimately they ended up with this. They have a recurrence of their bunion, crossover toes, dislocation, rigid hammer toe deformities. The patient came into my office and said, I have one goal. My son is getting married in September. I need to be able to dance at the wedding. and I need to be able to walk down the aisle. Can you fix this? And we did. And they're very happy, and they're getting ready for their wedding. Okay. Yes, ma'am?
How old was this person? Just if you can remember.
This patient is in their 50s to 60s, off the top of my head. So some of the problems that we develop with bunions, arthritis, calluses, like Dr. Duke said, because of uneven pressure being borne on the front of the foot and in other locations, crossover toes, hammer toes, bone spurs, and pain at the ball of foot, again, because that tripod is not balanced out correctly. And these deformities are progressive. So this can happen to anybody with time. Time is a factor. The longer you have this, the worse it gets. It does not resolve. It does not get better with time. Now, Dr. Duke is going to come up, and he's going to talk to you about the old way of doing it. And I want you to think about that last patient, that picture I just showed you. And he's going to, this is basically what that patient had. So I want you to compare and contrast these two techniques, and you see if they make sense to you.
The traditional two-dimensional approach. In school, you're taught dozens and dozens and dozens of different names of ways to cut this metatarsal bone to try and achieve the results you think you need. You're taught to measure a series of angles so that you can determine what category to put their bunion in, to determine what procedure they need. Because if it's one thing that we do really, really well as physicians, is we like to put things in categories. We like to grade them. Not just mild, moderate, severe, but also, well, is this angle 14 or is it 17? Because if it's 17, it needs this group of procedures. If it's over that, well, maybe it needs this. The truth is, we've had it wrong for a long time. Okay? So the true two-dimensional approach involved us maybe cutting this bone and moving a part of the bone. Now I'm going to ask you just off the top of your head, without knowing anything else before we go from here, does this bone look straight? No. If we roll back to that anatomy picture where those bones should be sitting almost parallel to each other, that bone's not parallel to the other one. It's almost right, but it's not right. And we're going to talk about the difference between those. So that traditional surgery, that traditional two-dimensional approach, if we go back to the Italy reference, the leaning tower pizza, if we look at that, if we just shave that bump off, have we straightened the bone? No, we haven't. Have we addressed the foundation at all? No. If we look over here at the actual structural image, if we just took a part of that tower off, people around there would be like, you're crazy, you're not very, I'm not hiring you, right? They look at that picture and go, you haven't fixed anything. You've covered up a problem, you haven't fixed a problem. So then it came along later on in the foot and ankle surgical world, and they said, well, let's move a portion of the bone over. Let's take the top portion of the bone and let's shift it sideways and use a variety of methods to hold it in place. Plates, screws, pins, staples, absorbable things. It's like we were almost inventing ways to hold this bone crooked. So if we look at this example here, again, nobody would cut part of that building and move it over, right? Anybody can look at that building and go, the foundation is off, you need to address the foundation somehow, some way in order to fix the problem. So if we go back and we look at that x-ray that you just saw, it looks pretty good, right? I mean, Dr. Mackler showed you what the joint congruity looked like. That joint that's fairly well aligned, but the rest of the bone we haven't messed with. We haven't really addressed the problem. So what do you think the likelihood of that problem coming back is? Pretty high. The same one, and that same patient is going to be the one who walks into the office going, I need to walk down the aisle in September. I need to go do my job so I don't lose it. I need to go exercise with my kids. This is not going to fix the problem. Why? We haven't addressed the problem. We haven't really dove into the anatomy of the problem. We've kind of covered it up. So it looks okay on the outside, right? But that bone is crooked. We can all see that. That's the outside picture for that patient. Toe looks pretty straight. They're happy for now. 5 years from now, probably not so happy. 10 years from now, probably really not happy. So it's kind of like putting lipstick on a pig. It's the difference between being right and almost right. It's the difference between when you leave, you go, this is done, it's over with, I know my problem's fixed, I don't have to go back, right? It's that same kind of concept. So the truth is bunion pain and the things associated with it, all those crossover toes that you saw, all those calluses, is it getting in the way of things you want to do? So I'll give you just 3 real simple things to look at. We all have things that we really like to do, right? I like to be with my kids. I like to go out, have them catch a bunch of baseballs, do whatever. If what you're dealing with is getting in the way of what you want to do, it's time that you look at going after it, right? Maybe there's things you don't like to do. The example I give is a bad one, okay? But we got to cut grass about 9 months out of the year here in mid-Missouri, right? If while you're cutting grass, your foot starts to hurt, and now you don't want to go and hang out with your family, now you're probably affecting them. And are you comfortable with the amount of conservative care you've tried? We could try all those pads, all those splints, any kind of insert you want to try. We'll try it, but we're going to be honest with you and tell you this isn't going to fix it. It's going to frustrate you, right? So there's a new way to do it. It's called Lapiplasty. Essentially, what happens is we put a 3-dimensional approach now that should have been done years and years and years ago. But as my dad says, it's practicing medicine. You've never perfected it, right? He always tells me, you're still just practicing. You don't have it perfect yet. I'm like, you're right, Dad. You're absolutely right. It's his way of just kind of knocking me back a little bit. And I'm okay
Your
with that.
dad, Dr. Duke, your dad knows my dad, right?
Yeah, he does. He does. I wouldn't be surprised if you hear that someday. You have to have advanced training to do it. Why? Because you have to know anatomy. So one of the guys who trained me, who's very near and dear to my heart, told me, hey, Dr. Duke, we can teach just about anybody to do something surgically. We can't teach anybody proper anatomy and how to know what to do, when to do it. Because that takes, it's more than just intuitive. That takes studying and learning, practice and experience. So not all surgeons can do this. And Dr. McElroy already told you we were the first in the state to offer it. We're also the most experienced by a lot. Without question or hesitation, by a lot. So what is Lapiplasty? It fixes the root cause. It's a 3-dimensional approach. He showed you how the bone shifts over, turns, rotates up, down, all that stuff. He showed you all those motions, right? This fixes that. Without question or hesitation or doubt, it fixes it. You will walk, for both of us, that night. If you got to get up and go to the restroom, you'll walk to the restroom. The next day, you'll walk. No more scooter, no more boots for 12, 15, 16 weeks. It'll be a very short time in that boot, but you can walk. No more cast. We will not put you in a cast. It just won't happen. We'll talk about time off of work later because I'm sure somebody has that as a question. But Dr. Maxwell mentioned this to you. It's permanent correction. Because the truth is we want you to fix it and be right the first time, not almost right. There's a difference. The 2-dimensional approach is almost right. The 3-dimensional approach is right. Right to the tune that if his mom needed it or my mom needed it, that's what they get. So, fix it right the first time. 3-dimensionally. Okay? Now, Dr. Mackler is going to give you some ins and outs about the procedure. Pay attention. It's going to be awesome. I've seen it. It's really, really good. Okay?
The building. So, if you look at this bone and you look at this X-ray, what do you guys think about this joint? I think this looks pretty good. This is a normal joint. If I put my hand over this section and you could not see that there's hardware fixating this metatarsal cuneiform joint, I'd say, is this normal, yes or no? It says joints are aligned, joint is congruous, metatarsals are parallel, toe is straight, it's not deviated. If this was my foot, I'd be happy with it. So again, restoration of anatomy back to what it is supposed to be, rather than cutting the bone, changing your anatomy, changing the shape of the bone, and not addressing the problem where it needs to be addressed, where you're going to have an increased risk for reoccurrence. This is the technique. So instead of cutting the bone, shifting it, like I said, we're going to realign it. So the Trace medical team, with a whole bunch of very, very smart surgeons, worked on this thing tirelessly to come up with a system that would allow for us to derotate the metatarsal in 3 planes and fixate it so you can walk immediately. And we have instrumentation here, we have bottles here, we have plates here, because that's a big question everyone always asks about the hardware. Am I going to feel it? And I can tell you that with over 100 cases performed so far here at our group, we have not taken hardware out on one patient due to irritation. Patients do not feel the plates. It's never a guarantee that you're not going to feel the plate because you'll be the first one. They're like, Magdalena lied to me. No, but we have not had any patients complain of the hardware. It is very fine, and you really just can't feel it beneath the skin. So it's excellent. So we're going to restore your natural anatomy. We're going to restore the toe position. And we're going to fixate you. And when I tell patients you need 2 plates, 8 screws, it sounds like a lot. But again, I encourage you to come on over, visit the models, take a look at it, because if you see it, you go, that's it. Really, there's not much to it. You're not going to ring through the metal detector. This is not going to make the dogs bark at the airport. You're fine. Again, image on the right, or image on your right here, Lapiplasty versus traditional 2-dimensional correction. I'd go with the one on the right. Again, that joint is still unstable. The chance for this problem to come back, even though that bump has been taken down, even though that bone is cut, the fulcrum of the deformity has not yet been addressed, and these 2 bones are going to continue to splay, and the big toe will continue to deviate towards the little toe, and the bump will come back. Look at these 2 images. Lapiplasty, normal foot. Both of these now are normal feet because of the technique. And that says it all right there. Now we're going to give you a little behind the scenes peek as far as how we kind of approach this. Again, we use a positioner, we use a fulcrum, which allows for us to derotate the metatarsal, and we also have a reproducible cut guide, so this way everyone is getting the same procedure every time. There's no freehand cuts, there's no, I'm eyeballing this, I'm trying to figure out what you need exactly. No, it's all built into the system through lots of method and lots of research. Okay. We correct, then we cut, then we fixate. When we have you on the table and we're performing this procedure for you, with the instrumentation, we've reduced the deformity, and I'm looking at that on x-ray prior to making any alteration to your anatomy at all. I don't use my saw until I'm happy with the position. This fixator allows me to put things exactly where they need to be. Then I go to work. All the work is done before you do anything. The rest of it's plug and play. Normal foot, bunion. Okay? There's a couple of models just to kind of show you what we do. Then we come in. We decrease the deformity with our positioner, putting our fulcrum in to allow us to derotate the metatarsal, bring it back into alignment. We put our joint seeker on in order to prepare for placement of our cutting guide. This is what it looks like intraoperatively. That's corrected. Joints realigned, sesamoids are in position. I have not cut anything yet. That's where it goes. That's where it belongs. This is in preparation for the fixation. So nothing has been changed. I can rotate this further or less depending upon what I need. This is a real-time photo. This is a picture of that x-ray. Cut guide in preparation. And again, we correct, then we cut, then we fixate. And that's what it looks like with restoration of normal anatomy. You can see here, this is one of my patients. Intraoperative photo, they also had a second digit dislocation because their bunion was so severe. So we had to shorten the second metatarsal. So they have 2 small screws in there as well. But you can see the hardware maintained here. Restoration of the joint, sesamoids aligned, big toe joint maintained. And these are just close-ups of what the hardware looks like. On here it looks like the Lincoln Tunnel, like in New York, or the George Washington Bridge. It looks gigantic, but in real life it's very small. The approach and the plating technique is what allows for you to walk immediately after surgery. More traditional methods of fixation does not allow for adequate stability of the joint. Plates break, screws break, joints will gap when you're trying to fuse them, things can move apart, and then you can also have a recurrence of deformity earlier, which could even potentially make for us to have to go back in and do more work to you. Not with this technique. By putting plates in 2 different planes, it allows for increased stability and strength at the fixation site. It allows for a small bit of flexion, which helps to incorporate the bone, and it helps to stimulate the bone to heal over time. But it is safe enough and strong enough to walk on. And you may say, well, I'm 120 pounds, or I'm 300 pounds. You know, does this hardware change for me? Or will I be at greater risk for having a problem? And I can tell you with certainty, I've had 90-pound females and I've had 300-pound truck drivers in my office who've all had this, and they've all done great. No problems. We don't have to make any modification of the procedure in order to provide the patient with those benefits. That's a before, that's an after. Now you say, okay, MacLear, yeah, that one looks easy, right? So that's why I put one of my bad ones up there. I want you to see the before and after of my patient before. The gal I showed you her pictures, this is her. Severe degeneration, retained fixation from a procedure a long, long time ago. Dislocation second toe, subluxation of the third, and look at this. Very bad. Now, straight as an arrow. Lapiplasty, we left our old hardware in. We didn't need to take it out. No sense in making more incisions to remove it. Sesamoids are back, joint is back, realigned, joints fused, metatarsal shortened, toes repaired, everything's back in alignment. I got plenty of these photos. You guys got time. You come to my house, we'll sit down and we'll have lunch, and we'll go through about 500 of them. These are 2 patients, these are 2 of my patients, post-ops. So you got a post-op 12 weeks, post-op 30 weeks. See the incision line? If you can see it, right there. Here's another one, right here. Okay, that's our incisional approach. So patients always worry about, am I gonna have a scar? Is it going to be thick? Is it going to be painful? Are people going to see it? Am I going to be embarrassed by a scar when I was embarrassed by my bunion? I think that's pretty good closure. I can hem your pants too, if anyone has any sewing they need me to do. My wife has a sewing ball for me at home. But we use, in all seriousness, we use a subcuticular, under the skin, running absorbable stitch. So at the end of the day, you come into my office, I take 1 knot out. We're not going to have a whole bunch of railroad tracks and a bunch of painful stitches to remove also. So I think that's pretty good. Dr. Duke's going to talk to you a little bit about getting back to the things that you want to do. The one other thing I wanted to mention to you about my approach for performing the surgery. In almost 99 to 100% of my cases, I also use a long-acting Marcaine, which is a numbing medicine. So patients who are coming in and having this procedure, I numb you up with this stuff, and it's more expensive than the traditional medicines we give. So a bottle of Marcaine, which is just some numbing medicine, it's like 50 cents for a big old bottle. This stuff, we eat the cost. It's like $200, and we get it because we want you to have a better surgical experience after surgery. People always say, hey, I hear bunion surgery is going to be really, really painful. You know, my cousin-in-law had some terrible experience somewhere, and I tell patients, my patients do well. They feel good after surgery typically. They don't really have to take a significant amount of pain medication. I have patients regularly bringing their pain medication prescriptions to me, like 1/4 or 1/2 left in the bottle, saying I didn't really need this. And it's in part because of the technique, and in part to the way that we treat you post-operatively and our approach to pain management, patient satisfaction. So we want you guys to have a very good experience through this entire process. And what's better than being able to walk immediately? And Dr. Duke's going to chat about that with you.
Have we confused you yet? No, right? So here's what everybody wants to know. What's going to happen to me after, right? What can I do? What can I not do? Oh, this sounds great. And now you're going to tell me that it's going to take like a year, right? No, absolutely not. If you had a two-dimensional traditional approach, there are times where you would have been in a cast for 12 to 16 weeks. With Lapiplasty, we're going to let you walk that day. On your heel for a little bit, but we're going to let you walk nonetheless. You're not going to have a cast up to your knee. You're not going to be trying to, shove the coat hanger down there to scratch because something's going on, right? There's no cast anymore. That's gone, right? You're going to be in that boot about 6 weeks. It also kind of depends on what other procedures you have done, but 6 weeks is about that time. And then we're going to put you back in your gym shoes and let you walk. At about the 4-month mark, sometimes a little sooner, we're going to let you get back to your exercise and your activities. So that lady who wanted to walk down the aisle, my patient who's a real estate agent who has to show us houses all through the spring and summer, and she's like, hey, I got to show houses in St. Louis for a few months. I need to be able to do what I need to be able to do. Yes, ma'am. No problem. Go do it. We're going to let you get back to those activities. See that little times vary, doctor's order vary, individual results vary. The beautiful thing about this is it's reproducible. So the result that you get that's awesome is going to be the same awesome result that you get. At about 1 year, the scar is fully healed. Why does it take that long? My own personal opinion, we go through all 4 seasons here in mid-Missouri. Some of them I don't like very much, okay? I lived in Chicago for like 7 years. It was cold, right? So now I hate the cold. But we still got to go through those seasons here, which is going to change your skin a little bit. But with that subcuticular stitch and with stitching patterns that you use, you saw that was like 12 weeks out. Wasn't it 12?
Well, it was 12, yeah.
12, that's 3 months that people look like that. The scar is not terrible at all, at all. So let's compare and contrast. If I went through that traditional 2-dimensional surgery, cast, crutches, or maybe you got to buy a scooter or rent one, I'm sure everybody has seen people wheeling around on those things at like Sam's and whatnot, right? Your insurance doesn't pay for that. 99% of the time, you have to pay for that. So that's another cost. With the 3-dimensional Lapiplasty approach, you don't need that. Put that money back in your pocket. Spend it on your kids or your grandkids, right? Go do something you want to do. 6 weeks completely off your foot if you had the traditional approach. Minimum. Could be 12 to 16. We're going to let you walk that day or the next day. We're going to let you get up and physically walk around and do some things. Now, we're not going to tell you you can walk around Sam's Club all day. We're not going to do that. But we will talk to you about the activities that you can do and that are okay. All right? And we're going to get you back into your gym shoes in about 6 to 8 weeks. You're already 2 months ahead of the traditional approach. 2 months ahead. So we're going to have some question and answer time, right? But I'm going to ask the first question. I'm going to ask the first one, right? Dr. Mackler kind of already alluded to the pain thing, so I'm going to ask him the first question. You guys write yours down and we'll kind of go from there, right? Dr. Mackler, does my insurance cover this procedure?
That's a very good question, Dr. Duke.
Study.
So, insurance does cover bunion surgery in general. It's not considered to be an elective procedure. It is typically traditionally covered by insurance. We have not had anyone thus far that has been denied, regardless of the insurance, and Lapiplasty is included in that. So we perform these both at St. Mary's Hospital, and we perform them here at Jefferson City Medical Group. And I want to say that probably 9.5 to half we do them here. Yeah, so it's over 90, 95% of them performed here at the group.
Who else has questions? Yes, sir.
Do both of you tag team together on one patient?
No.
You do yours, he does
Yeah,
his.
great question. So, thank you. So, my surgical day is Monday. Dr. Mackler's surgical day is Thursday. But the truth is, with the help of the surgery center and Natasha, who's actually right there in the back, who helps control us. We have the ability to get in on a number of days, but those are our set days. And we usually do them independently just so that we can help more people in the clinic while the other one's not there. Good question. Who's next?
Podiatrist has told me I've got one not so bad on the left foot, one worse on the right. Would you do them both at the same time, or?
Favorite question. Yeah, favorite question. Yeah.
So this is my favorite question. So the reason it's safer not to do that is because you need one good foot to stand on. And putting you in a position where you're laid up on both sides, even though with the Lapiplasty you can stand and walk on that foot immediately, you still want one good foot that you can favor if you need to. And worse is not based upon my definition of worse. Worse is based upon yours. So if you come in and you can have just a terrible deformity, you may say, this looks awful, but it doesn't hurt. But the one on the other foot that's smaller, that hurts a lot. That's what we go after. So we don't, I tell everyone, I can make your foot as straight as an arrow, and you'll be happy with the cosmesis of it. But if it doesn't hurt, is it time to do it now? And that's a conversation to have in the office. Sir? Sure.
Yeah, I've got two. The cut, when you talk about the cutting, that's cutting of the bone, I assume? That reducing the length of the bone?
Essentially, you remove approximately 1 millimeter to 1.5 millimeters of bone overall, and you're basically taking the cartilage away from both of the joint surfaces in preparation to bring the two ends of the bone together to fuse that joint so it no longer shifts and moves out of position.
The other question was, I assume that for the 6 weeks when you're wearing a boot, if it's on your right foot, you will not be driving for those 6 weeks.
That is correct.
You got it. That's for your own protection too.
Right. So the reason for that is that the Jefferson City Police Department or the Cole County Sheriff's Department or the troopers pull you over, they will give you a ticket. That is considered like a cast and an impediment to driving. That's a big no-no. And I actually have had a patient just recently who was driving in a boot and caused a 3-car collision. Yeah, so it's very dangerous, and I'm a big advocate to family support and help, and that's something we always discuss ahead of time because we don't want you to put yourself or anyone else in danger and trying to operate a motor vehicle in that fashion. So.
What about bathing?
Bathing. Great question. So, based on some of the stitch methods that we use, you're going to come back into the office and see us in less than a week. It depends on what day we can get you back there. It may be a day 5, it may be a day 6, or whatever. But we'll get those stitches out of there, and we're going to help you with that process in 2 ways. Number 1, sometimes you're healed quick enough that we can let soap and water run over it. During the first few days after surgery, though, we have something called a shower guard. It's a very nominal fee. You get it out of the office. Don't wrap that trash bag around and put that duct tape on because it leaks. It's not going to work. Okay, you may have worked before, but long term, probably not going to work. So we're going to get you a shower guard so that with even a day after surgery, you could slide that thing up and over your dressing, go ahead and stand in the shower, be perfectly fine. And then you could take it off, wash all the other parts of your foot. We won't let you soak or scrub that incision for a while.
When you're wearing the boot.
You'll take the boot off.
Right, but I mean, that's during that duration of the time, right?
No, not that whole time. You'll be getting that area wet very quickly. Yeah, very quickly.
After you do your examinations and all, how long before surgery?
It's a fair question. Dr. Mackler and I could probably get you in just a couple of weeks. I mean, 2 weeks, 3.
It really kind of, what we basically do is we just try to figure out what works for your schedule, what works for ours. So depending upon the time of the year, sometimes we're busier than others just because it's seasonal. If you want to come in December the 1st and say I need my surgery before the new year because my deductible's met and I want to jump in on this thing, that's a tall order. But if you come in and say, hey, listen, I want to have this done in the next month or two, you probably have a free range as far as being able to select a date. We try to make things as convenient as possible. So.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
how often are these follow-ups? Like we do the surgery and then take the stitches out and then
Yeah.
how often?
So I can tell you on average, my protocol is, and patients vary slightly depending upon their needs. So typically we'll see you on the surgical day. I'll see you on day 5. You come on into the office. I'll take your dressings down. Things look great. I'll say, okay, you're looking good. Go in your boots, start walking. I'll see you back at week 6 from surgery. Take some additional x-rays. And then we'll put you out to week 12 following that. Because we'll transition you into your tennis shoes at week 6. And then at week 12, we kind of graduate you. Between week 1 and week 6, though, we may have you back once or twice, depending upon your needs for if you need a second dressing, if you have a little bit of swelling and we want to try to take some of that down, or if we need to remove stitches if they're not just absorbable. It varies from person to person, and it also depends upon your activity level after surgery. So if you're very active and you're keeping your foot hanging down on a regular basis, you're going to have an increased risk for swelling. But if you keep that foot propped up, your rest, ice, elevate, you're just doing the basics, you're gonna notice that you're gonna have less swelling. We have patients that will go back to work after about 10 to 14 days, and they do stand-up jobs, not labor-based jobs where they're lifting, carrying, pushing, and pulling, and doing physically demanding work, but just basic things where they kind of have to go back and forth to a copier, or they have to, bring something from one office to another. Those people will tend to have more swelling than someone who's sitting at a desk, typing, with their foot propped up for the majority of the day. And so we try also to make sure that you have a realistic expectation of what's going to happen after that surgery has been performed based upon your occupation and your wants and needs.
This one.
I have 2 questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
My first one, probably an easy answer, would be, is the patient knocked out during the procedure?
You are anesthetized for the procedure.
You are
You go to, yes.
You are asleep.
Lions, okay.
Yes, we have a full complement of anesthesiologists and nurse anesthetists that will put you to sleep, and they monitor your vitals and take care of you during the entirety of the procedure. Same here as well as at the hospital, same level of care.
You're not allowed to help.
You said something about you mentioned numbing, and I didn't know if you meant that you were only numbed during the procedure.
No, that's for post-operative comfort.
Okay.
Yes, so we want you to wake up comfortable, and we don't want you to be unhappy with us.
Okay, good answer. Then my second question, can I ask you if you can help me to understand the difference between another procedure versus this procedure?
Sure.
Would you be willing to do that? I may be pronouncing this incorrectly. Is it percutaneous?
So minimally invasive, MIS.
I'm not sure but you know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
right.
I've never heard of it until Dateline recently.
Yes, so
And,
this is a very, very good question.
And the doctor at Mount Sinai
Yes.
Hospital in New York is the first one there, and he called my attention on it, knowing that I had interest. And I've been trying to do research on it because it's so brand spanking new. It's hard to find, well, at least in this country. Can you tell me what the benefits are to this procedure versus that one?
Okay, I'm going to tell you my opinion. Dr. Hughes can tell you his opinion.
Okay.
I want you to know, just in general, that first off, that's not Mount Sinai. It's Mount Sinai West. It's a completely different animal. Because I was at Mount Sinai. It's a different animal. Okay. So MIS or percutaneous minimally invasive bunion surgery is a traditional 2-dimensional method of cutting the bone with basically a side cutting burr. You're going in and you're really not appreciating the anatomy, including the tendons, the muscles, the ligaments, the nerves, the blood vessels. These things can become wrapped in this high-speed cutting, we call it a Shannon burr, basically that you're cutting the bone through the skin under x-ray, and it's kind of like if you're doing carpentry work in the dark. Okay, so MIS is not new. It's been around since like back in the 1950s. Guys are doing this stuff in their office. The problem is, like many things, is it got such a bad rap and things went so horribly wrong for so long. Everyone got completely away from doing it because there were so many bad outcomes, bad results, lawsuits, and so on. So Now what's happened is we've all gone to traditional methods of open fixation because it's more accurate, more reproducible, and we're providing patients with better results. But what people are looking for now is they're saying, well, wait a minute, why can't we kind of reinvent this old procedure and make it new again? And so the public is not very aware that this thing has been around forever, and they're touting it as a new process, but it is not new. It is old, it is traditional, and it is a two-dimensional correction. You do not do a Lapiplasty through this teeny tiny poke. You can't.
No.
You can't. So that's the one thing that we do fight now is patients are saying, well, can you do this way? And we can. But again, it increases your risk for injury, and you may not like the results you get. I would not do that for a family member.
I'm gonna add just one thing to that. We talked earlier about being right and almost right. That's not even almost right. Okay, it's not even close. About 5 years ago, I was watching TV. I was actually standing, I think, in our surgery center, and there was a TV on in the waiting room, and there was a guy on the doctor show. He was talking about he was getting rid of bunions with Botox. Oh. And I was like, well, I'm intrigued, so I sat down. That's my job, right? I was like, I want to learn this. What, is this real? No, it's not. What was happening is he was injecting Botox in and around a tendon that kind of tugs on that toe to pull it over to make that tendon weak so it would look like the toe was going back. So there's all different methods to make you think that it looks right, but it just goes back to kind of like putting that lipstick on a pig. It doesn't work. And I wouldn't. I'll go this far. If you asked for that, I would tell you no.
Thank you for clarifying that, because that was very misleading to an audience of millions, because it was on Dateline just a month ago, touting it as a brand new fandangled procedure, and how misleading is that?
And irresponsible, because you don't need much skill to stick a burr and just kind of go like this in a bone. And what's going to happen is we're going to have tons and tons of docs that are performing these procedures that are not qualified to do them, thinking that it's a simple fix, and they're going to end up with more complications. And if the trend continues, I think that you'll see more trouble with it. It's really unfortunate because bunion surgery can kind of get a bad rap because of the potential problems. This procedure, the Lapiplasty, kind of really puts all that to bed. And I hate to hear at the same time that this MIS stuff is struggling to try to make a comeback, because it really will kind of skew the patient's perception of what a bunion procedure is and what it can be. So it's very unfortunate. But excellent question, really excellent question.
All the way back.
I just wanted to mention, I was a patient here, I had this procedure done. And I was concerned, a friend of mine had a bunion surgery several years ago, and she still has no feeling in her toes. Was having lots of problems with nerve damage and different things like that. So I was a little bit concerned about that, and I felt my toes almost immediately. Never had any pain, never had any problems with my toes. Highly recommend it.
I did not pay her to say that.
I did. We'll catch up later.
Hey, thank you though. But this is excellent. I mean, patient testimonial. At our last seminar, we had one of our other gals come out, Gal Judy, and she's just a phenomenal lady. And I had done what was known as a traditional Lapidus procedure on her one foot. And she went through a typical recovery. She went through her 12 to 14 weeks where, she was off the foot on crutches and then limited with what she could do. She's back in a boot for a very long period of time. And then Lapiplasty came out. And I said, well, I can do this on the other side. And she came in here to our last seminar and just sang the praises of the procedure and kind of talked about her recovery and how it was significantly better. And if you guys go up on YouTube and you want to be bored again, you can watch our seminar from last year. It's up on our YouTube channel. It's on our Facebook page because she was there doing the Q&A, just like all yours. So thank you for that.
Yep.
How long has Lapiplasty been around?
So the Lapiplasty, Sean, you can tell us the exact birthday. This is Sean Scanlon, everyone. He's He's one of the executives from Lapiplasty, and we're flattered that he came out today to visit us and watch us do this.
Yeah, the kind of core procedure has been around for many years, but the instrumentation has made it more reproducible, three-dimensional.
I'm sorry.
I'll repeat it for you.
Sorry, it's going on about 2.5 to 3 years that we've been doing it.
2.5 to 3 years for the birth of the instrumentation.
Thank you.
Yes, that made it possible.
Good question. Absolutely. Sure.
If you have a bump on your big toe, left foot, hypothetical,
Hypothetical.
and it's very painful and it's getting worse, and that's why we're here.
Yeah.
But then you also have a bump on your pinky toe. Is that like corrected with the one, or is that an X-ray situation, or is that bunions on both sides?
So she asked if you had something else going on, maybe on your little toe, what kind of happens? Is it correctable with one or the other? They are two different anatomical structures. So the Lapiplasty won't fix your little toe, right? But you can have that little toe taken care of at the same time as the Lapiplasty procedure, if that's indeed what it needs. It kind of goes back to that really good history and physical exam that we talked about. We're going to look at it, and if that's one of the things that's getting in the way of you doing what you want to do, we're going to fix it at the same time. We're not going to say, you can have your Lapiplasty today, in 6 weeks you come back and we'll do your toe. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. If somebody tells you that, you should just get up and leave. Really, you should just get up and walk out. Yeah.
That one picture that you had of the before and after, the toenails were straight on the after.
Yes, ma'am.
Before they were curved and out of, it looked right. Is that part of it too? There was a before and after, I swear I saw it.
Yeah, you saw it.
Okay. Yeah.
Was it this one?
Yeah, that baby toe.
These are two different patients. I'm sorry. So this is 30 weeks on one patient, and this is 12 weeks on the other patient. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's okay.
If I didn't clarify that, I apologize.
I was just hoping, but it's okay.
I can fix this too.
We have things for that.
Oh, I fix
Yeah.
those too. That's what. Yeah, that's no problem. Whatever you need.
What you got?
I just have a question. You talked a little bit about being off work, and you talked about if you work, like, been walking a lot. I work, but I stand a lot. Is that going to matter?
You may have more swelling post-operatively, just because you're standing and gravity takes its effect.
So can you give me notes to say I don't have to stand?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course.
That would be great.
So we don't want you to be placed in harm's way, where you could potentially injure yourself. Of course.
My foot up.
Absolutely. We can do all that for you.
Courtney in our office writes amazing notes. We can do all of it. Right here. Stairs. You can certainly go up and down stairs. Now, we don't want you climbing stairs all day long, but to go up and down stairs, we'll teach you some methods on how to do it afterwards. It's not a contraindication right away, but if you said, oh, hey, I like to walk the stairs every day for exercise up to the 10th floor of the Truman building or whatnot, we're going to tell you to take the elevator.
Yeah.
You talked about fusing this joint. How does that affect your flexibility of your foot?
So this particular joint is unstable if you have a bunion. So you really should only have a couple of millimeters of motion in that joint to begin with in a normal stable foot. So by isolating that joint and realigning it and fusing it, you do lose motion there, but it's negligible. You're not going to notice that motion is gone.
You won't notice the difference walking.
No, ma'am. And it's actually a really good question, because there are other joints that if you fuse them, let's say like the big toe joint or the ankle joint, it really does significantly affect your ability to walk properly, and it can lead to arthritis at other locations. In this case, it's negligible and it won't cause any problems. Very good question.
What about that joint above that joint? Is the other joint going to become?
No. This joint here you're talking about, it's hard to see with the lights on in this image. Are you talking about right here, the medial cuneiform navicular joint? That joint has enough, right here you can see that there, and maybe you can see it a little bit better here. But that joint has adequate flexibility. You shouldn't have any problems. And also, think about this. When you have a joint like this, how do you think that joint's going to do? That's arthritic, and that's going to progressively get worse. So if you realign this one and lock it in place, this joint functions better.
So if you secure like down there and then the joint above it, like the low end would move.
Again, we're
That
talking
one's okay.
we're talking millimeters of motion. You're talking like an increment of motion. There's really not a significant amount of motion in that joint. Yeah. It's not, the foot is not like the hand where it's very articulated. There's only so much motion that happens in that middle portion of that foot.
You, absolutely. It's not going to affect the one that zero.
Anybody would? Sure.
I've had extensive surgery done on the right foot. I let it go way too long. I got for 3 months. And at that point, a lot of my toes were just, the joints were gone. So I had pins in all my toes. The only bone in my foot that moves is the joint in the big toe, very tough. What do you do about that kind of thing when your joints are disconnected?
Hard to say based upon the fact that you said you had extensive surgery. It would be easier for me to answer the question if you had an x-ray that I could kind of go through with you. Or Dr.
I've been
Duke.
told to just, I went in a year ago maybe and said, hey, I don't want to do this. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And should I just go ahead and have it done? And he said, no, wait. So I've been waiting.
Okay.
And now I'm wondering, I mean, my foot looks like this over here.
Okay. Well, as you can see, it can be fixed. But not everybody's the same, and if you've had prior surgery, it does change the game a little bit as far as depending upon what someone else did for you previously, what we can do for you now. Just depends on how much they altered your anatomy based upon your needs at that time.
So the left would be, if my toes were all the joints were together, would be a much simpler thing if I had it done as soon as possible.
It's always better to do things sooner rather than later because the deformity will progress over time. But the degree to which your surgery, to the degree of which we have to work on you in order to correct your problems will vary based upon what you're planning to show your x-ray.
And I have one more question. Medicare take care of this also?
Yes.
Yes.
How long is a surgical procedure?
The surgical procedure is less than an hour.
Okay, and you talked about arthritis before, but what about after? How's your arthritis now? Where you're cut, are you going to get arthritis there?
No, ma'am. We take those two bones that have very, very little motion anyway, but when you have an unstable joint, it gets too much motion. And when we fuse them together, it actually functions better. We've restored that alignment and whatnot, okay, so it's actually better. I want to give just one follow-up to your neighbor's question right there. We get this a lot, like, when should I, how should I do it, what do I do? I'll tell you the same thing that a physician told me. It's much better to be proactive than reactive, right? It's much better to go after it and take care of it so that, I'll date myself here. I'm 43, so that when I'm 53, it's better than I'm 43 if I have this problem, right? So be proactive rather than reactive.
Well, I didn't want to be 80 years old and walking around with the boot on my foot.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Speaking of causation there, do you recommend we stop wearing the red sternum shoes and footwear like that that can lead to this, or go to comfortable shoes? I know, I hate to hear this, but
Well,
we don't want to mess up your weekend job.
right. So let's look at it from two schools of thought. No, they're not good for you, but I'll be a little selfish. They're really good for business. Right?
it's really good for me too. I like that.
Yeah, I get a little selfish. All the way in the back.
Well, this going to what he was just asking, mine is after the surgery, when can I start wearing heels again? Because that's part of the reason why I don't wear heels, because I have this damn bunion, and I want to go back to my heels that have been sitting on my shelf.
Absolutely.
I will tell you
and
that.
I'm not talking about those heels.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about stilettos. I'm about a regular size, like a 3-inch kind of heel?
I would tell you that it varies based upon the individual, but in I grew up in New York, and I have several very good friends of mine that run around in like 6-inch stilettos, and it looks like they're performing an athletic event. It looks like something out of the Olympics, like the steeplechase. It's ridiculous. But they can run down the street and hail a cab faster than I can, and I'm not wearing heels. I will tell you that you can probably get back to wearing high heels, even though I don't advocate it per se, but you can get back to wearing your high heels by month 4. Just like we tell our patients, you can get back to running by that time.
At a previous position that I went to another surgery center, and probably 10 or 12 years ago, kind of like that gal, but I didn't have anything done, but he told me the same thing you guys are saying, 12 to whatever weeks in the food, a cast, you'll have a year before you can even think about putting your foot in any kind of a heel whatsoever, whether it's a high heel or even a low heel, because of the way that your foot would lift.
It really kind of depends upon also how much swelling you have post-operatively. So if you're extremely active after surgery and you have if you have more swelling, it may keep you from getting back into your typical shoes immediately. But if you have minimal swelling, which it's like a 50-50 coin flip depending upon what you're doing post-operatively, but you can get back to those shoes. David.
Yeah, we have a patient online asking if a patient needs surgery on both feet. Typically, how much time should be allowed between the 2 surgeries?
That's a very good question.
That's a great question.
And that will that will vary depending upon health factors and occupation and so on. But on average, I think the earliest that I've typically done a second procedure for a patient is usually at 10 to 12 weeks post-op, if the patient is well recovered and tolerating their post-operative period well, and they don't have too much being demanded of them as far as physical activity after the surgery.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Completely agree with that. It goes back to you definitely want one good foot that you trust to do everything you need to do, right, while you're recovering. So that time frame is perfect. Perfect. Good, great question.
You asked
Does that tight titanium blade have a shelf life? No.
Forever. There's no expiration date on the titanium blade. And I will tell you also that after the joint is fused, the hardware is superfluous. You don't need it in there anymore. But however, as a rule of thumb, we don't traumatize you surgically with an additional procedure to remove hardware that you don't require. It sits in there and it stays quiet, and patients don't notice that it's there anymore. Right. So, good question. So that question, yes, ma'am.
2 questions actually. So after the surgery, how long do you have to wait before you can fly?
Oh, that's a very good question.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a
Nice
very good
question.
question.
Well,
Did everybody hear that?
No.
Okay, so post-operatively, how soon can I fly in an airplane? Okay, that's a real question, because think about it. Because after surgery, you're at increased risk of developing blood clots. And being on airplanes, as far as long-haul flights and so on and so forth, being in a seated position, not really moving afterwards, that increases that risk. So on average, I will tell my patients for a short-haul flight at 6 weeks, since they are walking in their shoes at 6 weeks, they can begin walking, kind of transversing through the airport on their own. As long as you're walking in your shoes, you can fly. But if there's any reason for a potential for setback or so on and so forth, which is not common, it could be extended.
So at the beginning, when we were all having our dinner and before you started presentation, there was a slide that how many percent of people who have the surgery will have bunions again. Is
Correct.
it still true with even this surgery?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not. Because of the process, because of the reproducibility with the cut guide, and before even a cut is made, you know where that bone is. No.
You realign the anatomy back to normal.
Right.
If you put everything back where it belongs, the bunion doesn't come back. It's as close to 0 as we can get to.
Who else? Sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, ma'am, please.
When you talk about reproducibility, what exactly do you mean? I mean,
Sure. Reproducibility allows us to know that we can fix any severity of the bunion deformity and restore your normal anatomy. It gives us the confidence to know that it's going to be right. Not just for you, but for everybody here, right? Because of the system that's used. So that person who walked in there, that two-dimensional traditional approach, you heard a comment like, we're kind of eyeballing that cut, right? There's no more eyeball to it. We've taken that guesswork out of it. We've taken that away. So the confidence factor goes up not just for you, but for the surgeon doing it as well.
There's no more personal preference and variability in technique. So if Dr. Duke and I both were to come in and perform a traditional procedure based upon our previous experience, I may say, well, I do it this way because, and he may say, well, I do it this way because, and then it's not exactly the same anymore. So this is a not only hardware, but it's an instrumentation, it's a process, it's a philosophy. So the philosophy says we correct it like this until it's aligned and you're not doing it. So we very much appreciate all you guys coming out. So